All right, so welcome to Coffee with Purpose, everyone. I'm actually here in person, which is odd for me, but I had downtown native business this morning, so I'm here along with Mike. And we're gonna have our new town clerk, well, new already a year plus probably, I guess, as our featured speaker this morning. But before we do that, we wanted to just briefly talk about the imminently closing window for applying for appointments, vacancies on boards and so forth. And Wrigley, is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah.
Is with us, and Catherine Coughlin, I see, is online. I know Catherine Doran, I don't know if she's online, but all three of these people have been trying to give some visibility and guidance on how this process works. So if either of you want to just speak briefly about that before we move to answer. No?
I'm not sure if I can give the full run through, but basically, I'm just a resident who recently discovered the open position process and that the average Natick person can apply to positions in Natick, and that was, new to me. I'm still learning a lot about town government. So yeah, I just thought it was interesting, and I just reached out to select board, and Catherine just asked more information. Is this a 40-hour week job? Is it a 4-hour week job? Is it a job? Things like that, yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of, the no stupid questions thing. For years, I wasn't sure whether to ask. I asked, Catherine was very helpful in giving some information. And so, yeah, we were just talking about it this morning about when the positions are closing. I believe it's end of May, things like that, or the application process, end of May. Yeah.
Yeah, Catherine, feel free to jump in if you want to add.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So, yeah, for the most part, the application process ends at the end of May, but some positions and some appointments don't expire to the end of June. So for some of those, we'll bump them into, since we're running out of time in May, we'll bump those to June. Yes, anyone can join or apply to a board. No specialized experience is required, although for some of the boards where there's technical experience involved, so Concom and ZBA, both of which are quasi-judicial boards, we tend to look for a balance of, people who have, specific backgrounds. So for the ZBA, land use lawyers, landscape architects, but not everybody has to have that kind of experience. What we're looking for, what I'm looking for, I won't speak for the rest of the board, is a wide, first of all, an interest. And I'm really thankful that Anne asked me about the time commitment. So I've gotten most of the information back from the boards about what the time commitment is, and we'll be updating that the document that went out that's on the website about each board, how long the term is, what the charge is. We're going to update that with two things. One is going to be the number of hours committed and or how often the meetings are. So for example, some committees only meet twice a year. So instead of having a time commitment of blank hours a week, it'll be two meetings, 3 hours twice a year, something like that. I guess that's all I have, unless somebody has a question. I guess that's all I have. Okay, I'll just be quiet.
I don't have any questions, but I do have something to add. Is that okay?
Yeah, always.
Did we get disconnected? Can
Nope.
the people still hear us?
I can
Okay.
hear you. Yep.
Okay. I just want to say also, I feel like sometimes the conversation gets missed when we're talking about being on a board or committee about homework and doing homework. And so I feel like that's something people should realize, that a lot of this isn't just showing up and sitting there and giving an opinion. There's actually some homework involved. And so I don't want people to think that it's just sitting up, just showing up, sitting down and voting. I do think there's a lot of thought process into it.
I do appreciate that, Brinley. Most of the boards have indicated, for example, we have 2 meetings a month. Each meeting is 2 hours. There's also field work. So for example, if you're on the Concom or the ZBA or the Net Zero committee, some of these have work that takes place outside. But in addition to this, we are, fingers crossed, adopting select board norms at the next meeting. And those norms articulate 9 principles. So unlike the school department, the school committee's norms, which are like, I don't know, 10 pages long, they were very simple. And one of them is you need to do the homework and be prepared at a meeting. And then once we adopt these norms, we'll roll them out to the boards we appoint to and ask that they review them, if personalize them if they need to for their board, but they include things like being thoughtful and polite when engaging members of the public and each other, and also supporting staff. And part of doing your homework when you have staff coming before your board is to make sure that you've reviewed all of the materials ahead of time. And if you have questions for staff, you reach out to them beforehand. And I can't overstate how important that is, because it undermines staff morale greatly when they feel like they're getting gotcha questions in the ninth hour when they're on TV and their eyes are wide open and they're just like, well, I hadn't considered that. So yes, I take your point about homework, being prepared, showing up, and that's included both in the norms and in the hours that, or the time commitment that's expressed.
Thank
And
you so
Catherine-
much for bringing that up. I do feel like when they do homework that it also actually takes less time for the meetings. You know, the meetings end up going more smoothly, and the questions that have been asked in advance come into their presentation. And so it just seems to be also better for all of us watching. So thank you
It's
so much
so
for your time
efficient.
with that, Catherine.
Yep, thanks, Brinley.
Catherine, the one other question we had here was, where on the website is that document that you're talking about adding the columns to?
So I bet Brinley knows where it is faster than I do, but I'm looking it up right now.
It's a race. All right, cool.
Somebody will get it in the chat, I guess.
Yeah, we could
Next
just
minute
pop
or
that.
so.
Throw it in
into
the chat.
Yeah, all right.
I'll find
Well,
it. Thanks.
thank you both for that. So with that pre-topic out of the way, two pre-topics out of the way, let me welcome Andrew Ghobrial. Ghobrial, town clerk, to Coffee with a Purpose. And like we usually do, let's do brief introductions of ourselves. I think one thing Andrew might be interested to hear is how many of you are town meeting members and how many of you have done any volunteer work with the clerk's office or with the elections in the past. So just starting in the room here, Carrie.
Sure. Hi, Andrew. Carrie Butchfield, 23-year resident here, former town meeting member for 6 years. Was on the sustainability committee for a while, helped form Renewable Natick, treasurer for Keep Natick Beautiful. Not really anything with the town other than former town meeting member.
Nice.
Repair cafe guy, if you knew that. I'm 6 of those. That's
Yeah.
enough about me.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Great.
Yeah.
Cindy.
I'm Cindy Bates, a 5.5-year resident of Natick. I was across the parking lot from the town hall.
Okay.
I am a trail steward and Keep Natick Beautiful picker-upper. Studying what it's gonna be like if eventually I become a town meeting member.
Happy to discuss that with you.
In the sort of like future.
Absolutely. It's a good thing to do. You can get involved and
Yeah.
Great.
learn a lot.
Thanks, Cindy. Martin.
Yeah, Martin Kessel, 25 years on town meeting, 24 of those on the Open Space Advisory Committee, and for a number of years, the election warden in precinct 2.
Nice.
Great. Ann.
Hi, Anne or Annette Wrigley, Natick resident since 2015. I live around Natick Center. I'm in Natick Center. No election related volunteer groups. I'm part of the Natick Garden Club and anything outdoor related. And I'm a amateur poop picker-upper, not on. I like to spend my mornings just walking around and doing a good deed. That's about it.
Thanks, Ann. And online, let's see, Tom.
Good morning. I have met you, Town Clerk, Paul Carew, Director of Veteran Services for the town of Natick. This is my busiest month of the year with Memorial Day coming up this Monday, the 26th of May. Do a lot of volunteerism in the town of Natick. I'm working on a project now, and I'm hoping to sit down with you, Town Clerk, and identify the generational veterans in the town of Natick. So I've done this in the past, and it's gives me some notes and so forth, so I can go to the different generations from the OIC, OIF, back to Vietnam, back to Korea, and World War II was awesome. So look forward to your talk this morning, and look forward to sitting down with you in the future.
All right, let's try this again. Tom Daly.
Okay, hold on. Somehow, now the master.
Oh,
hi.
Oh, I think I'm
Oh, we
pressing
can
the
touch
wrong
that.
button. I was trying to do volume and I think I muted the owl. So everybody's in the whole room is muted. So I think we're okay now.
All right, Tom, can you hear
Okay,
me?
yeah, I'm Tom. I'm 35 years, resident of Natick, former town meeting member and member of Spark Kindness. Welcome.
Thanks, Tom. Elaine.
Elaine Ostroff. Compared to the rest of you, I'm relatively new to Natick. I'm a mother, a grandmother, founding director of the Institute for Human-Centered Design, and terribly sad about the diagnosis of former President Biden. So here I am. Good morning.
Yeah, that was difficult news to hear. Rick.
Morning, everybody. I'm enjoying a post-grandchildren week visit cold, which is par for the course just about every time we spend a week with grandchildren. So I've been in Natick for 8 years now, and really enjoy this hour as well as any other hour in getting to meet people online or in person. Thanks for being here, Andrew. Look forward to hearing about it.
Rick. Janji? You're on mute, Janji? Yeah. Trying to find your mute switch.
Well,
Maybe we could circle back to her. How about Pat?
Good morning. Pat Conaway, Keep Natick Beautiful.
We've been talking about you.
Yeah, and founder of Coffee with Purpose. Janji, I see you're up.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was chatting with Sally and just, miscommunicated more and couldn't find suddenly, the muting button. So my name is Janji Molnar, and I live in Natick more than 25 years. I'm a retired from the pharmaceutical industry, and I love to come to this lovely chatting on every Monday morning. It's a nice start of the week. I'm just learning more and more from my community. Thank you.
Thanks, Janji. Carol.
Good morning, Carol Berkowitz. I've lived in Natick over 50 years, very proud of my town, and I was a special educator for over 30 years. So, good morning.
Thanks, Carol. Sally?
Good morning. I'm Sally Hopkins. Not here too long either, like Elaine, and I do love our Coffee with a Purpose conversations. And please, thank you for being here this morning.
Thanks, Sally. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Hanna, Doug's wife, retired geologist, currently on town meeting and the Community Preservation Committee, and really excited to hear what you have to say. So thank you for being here.
Great. Catherine?
Catherine Coughlin, Select Board Town Meeting Member. Thanks.
Thanks. Brendan?
Good morning. Been here about 25 years, 2 kids. One just went through the school system and just finished his freshman year in college, and one just is finishing his freshman year in the high school. I was on the recycling committee for probably well over 10 years, actually. Working with them, I was on the Pay As You Throw task force that brought us the blue bags. I'm on my 2nd term of town meeting. I just got elected to the Natick Community Organic Farm Board. I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm really glad you're here. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Freeland. And I'm Doug, I moderate this group, just started volunteering for elections. I did my second poll worker election this spring, so I think that's all of us. So again, welcome, Andrew. I'm really happy to have you spend some time with us this morning.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks to everyone, and it's nice to meet you all. I look forward to meeting you in person, those that are on Zoom. So I am relatively new to Natick. I started in August of last year. And it's been one election after the other since I started. We had the state primary in September, and then the November presidential election. And then right after that, we started preparing for the March annual town election. And again, after that, we had town meeting. So it's been a roller coaster ride, but it's been an enjoyable one for sure. I've learned a lot. I've worked with some awesome people, and it's been very rewarding for me. As town meeting has now concluded its business, we can start to breathe again. So now we're just playing catch up. This was my first town meeting. I did attend the fall town meeting in 2024, but thankfully Diane Packer, who was the clerk before me, actually did all the minutes and the work leading up to that. So she took off a huge burden off my shoulders because of the election that we were working on at that time. So I thank her for that. But now it's my time. It's my turn to do all the minutes and the submissions to the Attorney General's office for approval of the zoning bylaw changes and town bylaw changes, which I'm currently in progress and then working on. So that's what we're focusing on in office. Well, I'm focusing on in the office right now. But for those of you that are not too familiar with the town clerk's office, it is one of those offices that's front and center of town government. It's in a sense, it's a gateway to the local government. Some of the things that we do on the regular basis is issue vital records, certificates of birth, marriage, and death. We've seen an influx in that as people have been scrambling to get the real IDs and need their documents in line. So we've seen a lot of that. We do elections as we touched upon. So that includes public works, pairing up with public works, the school department, police department, and definitely the communications director to do the reverse 911 calls, and to get the word out on local elections and state elections and everything. So there's a lot of coordination that has to be done leading up to an election. And no matter the volume predicted in the election, you have to prepare for 2 million voters or 20 voters. All the same steps have to be taken. So it's nice to see a good turnout when we have an election, and we've had really good turnout here in Natick in the town election, and obviously in the presidential election last year in 2024. So that's refreshing and good to see. Another thing that we do is we issue some licenses in the office. So businesses that register in the town, they register they're doing business as or a DBA with the town and get a business certificate. That often protects the business owner and the public. And so we issue that, and it helps. It helps consumers know where they're doing business, who they're doing business with, and that sort of thing. And so our office, since we have the Natick Mall here and a bunch of commercial storefronts on Route 9 and 135 and the like, we do see a lot of these people coming in to renew their DBAs. That's something that's good for 4 years. So every 4 years, people come in and take care of that. We also, I'm sorry?
D, what's the?
Doing business as.
Oh, doing,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
pretty simple.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's something that we do. Also, we issue dog licenses. So for you that have some furry pets at home, we issue the annual dog license. We see a lot of dog licenses issued. And I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it's pretty about 3K or so. So we start the renewal process in December. And we send out notices. We do email blasts to try to get people to renew before the deadline of March 1st. So I want to emphasize that there is a deadline of March 1st for those with furry pets. Just keep that in your mind for next year.
What happens if you don't renew? Is there like a fine?
There is a $50 late fee if you do not renew by March 1st. We do try to, work with the residents, if they couldn't schedule like a rabies vaccination, get that up-to-date vaccination proof, then we'll give them, we'll note that in the account and we'll give them an extra week or two to comply. But generally speaking, the goal of the dog licensing is to ensure that, all the dogs are up to date with the rabies vaccinations and that, members of the public that may interact with these dogs are protected and safe. So that's the goal of the dog licensing process. It's not to penalize people for being late. It's just more of a protection method for residents and visitors alike. Another thing we do is not so often you hear about this, but if you have like a raffle or bazaar, my office in conjunction with the Native Police Department would issue the raffle and bazaar permit for any event. That's usually good for it's good for 1 year. And it does involve some coordination with the State Lottery Commission to report, profit and expenditures and that sort of thing. So we get a lot of questions about that for, nonprofits that are doing these fundraisers. So our office handles that. And going back again, taking a few steps back to vital records, I know I said we've been getting a lot of requests for those. We've done a lot of amendments. So basically an amendment is when someone, comes to pick up their vital record, a certified copy of that, and they see that there's an error in the name, an error in the spelling, that sort of thing. A lot of people will sign off on those and just walk away and forget about it. 30 years later, when they need to get a, official documentation, they realize, oh, there's an extra E on the end of my name or what have you. So that's a very convoluted process. It takes a lot of time, and there needs to be evidence presented and that sort of thing. So we've seen an influx of that recently with people obtaining their marriage licenses from 1980 and so on and so forth. So we try to get those out and done as soon as we can, but we've definitely seen a huge influx in that. So that is some of the stuff we do. I feel like I'm missing a lot, but it's a little also, being in the first floor of town hall and having the bigger windows, people often come to us, where'd I go for this? Where'd I get the blue bags for trash? So we try to provide the information as best as we can. A lot of people come to call us and connect to the town clerk's office, and we try to, facilitate the calls, try to get them the information they're looking for. Also, the clerk's office serves as the records access officer, if you will. So basically, anyone wishing to obtain information from their local government can submit a public records request. It can be made orally or through written form. We do have a portal online that people can request materials from. And the law is explicit. It states that, a response shall be provided within 10 business days. As the records custodian here in town, I coordinate with different departments to make sure that we are in compliance with that and that people do get the information that they seek within a required time frame. There have been a few, instances where people submit a request for voluminous records without, specific timeframes or specific individuals. So we try to narrow it down because this can take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And while we're happy to do that, this also can incur a cost to the requester. So we try to, get more information from them, some specificity and that sort of thing. But we do get an influx of those people looking at purchasing a home, for example, will request the permit history for their property. People, that sort of thing. Voter records, that sort of thing.
Voter records or maybe other topics. We've heard in the news that it's almost a tactic to that can be used to clog up a process to make voluminous requests. Have you seen much of any evidence of that in this town?
I wouldn't say so. I feel like people, generally speaking, they get information that they really need. Up and to and through the elections, we've seen a lot of people requesting voter extracts, basically a listing of those that are registered and the registration status, whether they're Republicans, Democrats, or unenrolled, that sort of thing, which it is public record. So I do request that from the state. It's through the state portal. I retrieve it, then I send it off to them. We've seen an influx of that, up to and through the elections and even during a local election. So I try to fulfill these requests as soon as I can. Generally speaking, though, we get requests and we have 10 business days. Usually, at least my department will respond within 1 or 2 days. We try to, ensure transparency, and we try to have, an open door, if you will. People have come in and, looked at our vault. We have a vault here with all the records of the town, annual reports going back to the 1800s and birth records, marriage records, a lot of historical stuff as it pertains to the town meeting records, attorney general decisions. Those are permanent records. They're kept in a vault that's, built with concrete, with certain temperature controls, that sort of thing. So we unfortunately, we can't let those records leave the office, but we've had residents that wanted to do research. We allow them to come in and do that. So we try to work with our residents to make sure that they have the transparency they need and that sort of thing.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
You sound like you've done this job before elsewhere, and you've unlike your predecessors, not Diane, but the other ones, you've lasted longer than head of lettuce, which is a good thing. So hopefully you're just.
Well, no jinx me.
Where'd you come from? Where'd you work before this?
So actually, I started my career in government, working for the Secretary of State. I worked for the Secretary of State right before the pandemic, and I worked in the Public Records Division. So I learned an extensive deal of laws that pertain to public records. I was on the other side and actually worked with Diane Packer and Karis North before even seeing them and meeting them in person. So it was really nice. I learned a lot about the public records law and government transparency, the open meeting law, and that sort of thing. For those of you that are not aware, the open meeting law is a requirement in Mass General laws and enforced by the Attorney General's office that requires that meetings be properly noticed at least 48 hours before a meeting is to be held. And as the town clerk, we post all these meetings for boards and commissions, for historical commission, the parks commission, every commission in town, except the select board and the school committee. They post their own agendas using software. We just posted in the vestibule of town hall, the physical notice we post the physical notice in the vestibule of town hall. So again, we ensure compliance with the postings and make sure that they are timely. In a few instances, we've had to reach out to the person organizing the meeting and ask that they postpone a meeting because the holiday was in the middle, so that impacts the 48-hour requirement. And everyone's been works very well with us, and it's a big team effort. And one of the best things about the town of Natick and in town hall, there's a lot of teamwork. Departments work well together. We have an awesome administration that coordinates and works very well with us. And they do back us up. They try to help us with things that we need. For example, early voting. I knew that we were going to have an override question on the ballot this year in March. So I worked with the town administration and different folks on the first floor, the department heads on the first floor, to ensure that we could have early voting in the lobby of town hall while we conduct business during the week. So it was a big undertaking. We worked with the town administrator, the treasurer collector director, and we were able to make it work for both the office, who had issued tax bills for that time frame, and for the people of Natick that want to cast their ballots. So it was a win-win, but we had to make a few tweaks, but the administration was very helpful in doing that. And Debbie from the treasurer collector's office was also very helpful in this regard. So it's a great place to be. A lot of teamwork, a lot of collaboration. And we try to help each other as best as we can and serve the residents of the town of Natick in any way that we can. So I do enjoy being here.
Cool. I see Rick has got his hand up. Rick, did you want to ask a question, make a comment?
Yeah, it sounds like, you have a great background for this, Andrew. So once again, you're another one of these people who joins the Natick government, who just seems to be a great find. So thanks for being here. My question is simple. It's just definitional. There may be no difference between a board and a commission, or a committee and a commission. Is there? Why is something called a commission and something else called a committee?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure that I'll be able to answer it. I know that it's all the same thing. I think it maybe the description of the board, like Board of Health, maybe sounds better. I'm not entirely sure. But I'll definitely look into that, and if I can,
This is not a surprise that Catherine might have some.
Yeah,
input on
and
this.
some of us
Yeah.
are called committees, which is yet
Yeah,
another word, and I think they all.
it's a really good question.
Yeah.
Some have actual powers, like
Yeah.
the
But look,
select board and the planning board, and
Yeah.
some, like our committee, is an advisory committee, but I don't know if that.
it looks like Catherine might have some information too. Catherine, you wanna?
Yeah, just real quickly. Commission usually has its origin in Mass General Law. And so and committees generally are advisory. I'm sorry, not committees. Yeah, committees are generally advisory with the exception of the Conservation Commission. Well, that's a commission, sorry. Boards have powers. So the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Select Board, et cetera. And that's just broad overview. I mean, there may be, and task force are committees with defined endpoints. So in other words, a task force is a committee that has a 1-year charge, or the South Natick Dam Task Force, or, et cetera.
Okay,
Good to know. Thank you, Catherine.
that was
I learned
pretty
something.
There we
succinct.
go. We can all help each other out. Yeah.
That was pretty succinct. Okay, I noticed, for instance, not to drill down in a matter of personal interest here, but I noticed, for instance, the Rec and Park Commission description of what they do is mainly advisory, or at least advisory is sort of the beginning thing, which is kind of what a committee does. I was just curious when I saw that, what that actually meant, what they might do that a standing committee doesn't do, and maybe a commission. Yeah.
I can answer that, Rick. So that has its origins in part of the membership being elected and part of it being appointed. And they had some power. So they had the power to review and approve applications for the use of the common, but we're taking that back from them because it's in violation of the Constitution. In other words, if somebody applies to use the common, the Supreme Court has said, or the Supreme Judicial Court has said, that the town has to rule on that request within 5 to 7 days. And because the commission meets twice a month, that's impossible. So we've been working on taking that back. The council has a draft proposal that I put together, sent to her last October, November. So hopefully we'll make that change. And at some point, the commission will likely become a committee and it'll be advisory.
That's great news. I looked into getting a permit for the Earth Day, fair the first year we did it, and I was told about the process, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
No, it's currently, as it's written, is onerous and unconstitutional. So actually, that's a reminder. I'll put that back on council's desk, and maybe we can get that done in June.
Okay, thank you.
And adherence to the Constitution is always a good thing.
Yeah.
As the second quickie, sort of definitional again, you were talking about DBAs. I assume that includes all forms of nonprofit, including charities. For instance, if somebody is running one even out of their house, does that also require? Not that we are, honestly. Actually, we don't have one organized here, but I was just curious if they would also need a DBA. Not that it's a big deal.
I have, usually it's for-profit organizations that have applied for DBAs. I haven't encountered a situation of a nonprofit organization filing with us. My understanding is that nonprofits usually file with the Secretary of State for that purpose.
Okay, thank you.
So you can get a DBA either with the state or the town.
Well, yeah, correct, but the terminology varies a little bit. It would be like an articles of organization for a nonprofit versus a doing business as. So the articles of organization is usually issued by the Secretary of State's office, and that is for nonprofits, religious institutions, that sort of thing. Whereas, if you're for a business for profit, you would get a DBA, which is a doing business as certificate. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. So we've been peppering you with questions. I don't know whether you have other material that you, or, that things you wanted to impart. Or,
I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I have a wonderful staff, actually. Thanks for reminding me. I get a little nervous. So I have a wonderful staff. I have, currently I have one vacancy for the assistant town clerk, which was funded in the in the final budget that passed in town meeting. So we will be opening that up pretty soon. I do have an executive assistant, Virginia Hewitt. She is a very awesome individual, very helpful, and gets a lot done for the office. I rely on her heavily for a lot of things that I otherwise might not have the capacity to do or the time to do. And so she actually oversees like the raffle and bazaar permits. Other folks in the office are being trained on that because my goal is to cross train everyone and everything, so that in case we have someone on vacation or in absence, we can have the office flow as normal. But as of now, she is heavily involved in amendments and raffle and bazaar permits, and she is I've directed her to teach other individuals in the office so that we can have this cross training going. I do have Maya Allen as one of my administrative assistants. Maya has been with the town clerk's office for just under a year at this point. Her year will come at the end of the month. She's been very helpful, works very hard, and very good customer service, good ability to deal with people. And I'm fortunate to have her on my staff. I also have Melissa Hayes, who joined the town clerk's office in the beginning of January, right at the start of the new year. And she has learned a lot in such a short time, and been very instrumental in the oversight and daily operations of the town clerk's office. She's taken a lot of, she's learned everything that she needs to learn, and she keeps on asking questions and learning, which is awesome. I'm very truly blessed to have such a wonderful team in the office. We are serious about doing business, but we also have fun while doing it. And we try to keep the office, in good spirits as we conduct our work.
Brinley's got her hand up, and I know I've got a topic I want to address, but Brinley, go ahead.
Sure. I was wondering, Andrew, if you could talk about volunteering to help, because I know we always need that. And I feel like several people have left and several people still there. And I went through that process and was unable to help this time because of the way the schedule works for doing it. But I would love to hear about getting more people involved in volunteering to help with our elections.
Certainly. So actually, just like the staff, I've been very fortunate to have a dedicated number of folks that have served as poll workers and as election workers leading up to an election. As we all know, COVID changed things, changed how we do elections. And now one of the biggest time-consuming tasks leading up to an election is the mailing and processing of ballots that have been mailed. It's a long cycle. Before it used to be, 3-step process to get ready for an election. And now if you do a vote by mail ballot, it adds a total of 11 steps. There's a flow chart that I have in my office that sums that up pretty well. But based on that alone, you can understand why we need the hands and help. So we've had an awesome, incredible amount of people that have assisted in this effort. Putting labels on the ballot envelopes, putting the ballots in the envelope and processing them when they come back with a vote, scanning them into the system so that voters know that their vote has been counted. And we've been very instrumental in getting those out. The state did commend us for being on the top 4% of getting ballots out as soon as a request is made. And that's due to all the volunteers. I couldn't do it by myself, and myself and my staff couldn't do it by ourselves. So it's a big undertaking, and all the volunteers make that happen.
Do you have any sense of approximately how many volunteers are involved in this?
15 to 20.
Wow.
At least 15 to 20 in the office.
Yeah.
The town election, since it was this, let me back up a little bit if you may.
Yeah.
If I may. So for the presidential election, we saw a huge demand. We had about 81 or 84% turnout. I forget the exact number, but it was a pretty good turnout. So we had about 11,000 ballots that were mailed out to people. So that's a lot of work. So we had people in the office every day helping us out in that endeavor, mailing ballots out, scanning them back in. For the town election, we were able to manage that. We had 269 ballots mailed out. And so it was a very, very manageable election. And we had early voting too for a whole week and a weekend. So that did, take away from the vote by mail process a little bit, I think. So we were able to manage that, but the volunteers are very instrumental in helping us do the work we need to do. If I may, there's also another thing that I forgot to touch upon, which is very important. The annual street list or census, as you call it. In January, we mail out to every household a legal document that lists who lives in that address. And then we process that document as soon as it comes back to us and make the necessary changes. That document is then, that process leads to the publishing of a street list, if you will, which is a public document that lists every inhabitant in the town of Natick 17 years and above. And basically that does, it's the end product of the census, and that is required by Mass General Law every year. So shortly, we will be mailing out confirmation cards, which is the next step after census mailing. Basically what that is a postcard that has postage paid both ways that asks people that have not responded to the street list or street census to furnish us with a response. We try to get as much as we can. We try to get people to respond as best as we can. We try to get 100% of people to respond. It's not always the case, but this confirmation mailing will hopefully achieve that or get us close to that number. So that's actually in process now. It's something that we're going to be working on in the coming week or two.
Do you use volunteers for that too, or?
We have. So at the beginning of the year, as soon as we mail those out, we started getting an influx of them. We put a secure box in the lobby so people can deposit their census in there. We get them by mail as well. And also another thing that I launched this year was the ability to scan in with your smartphone, your census, and make sure that the barcode at the top is not cut off, okay? And then you can email it to census@natickma.org.
Yeah.
And that would allow us to process the census without, you wouldn't have to come to town hall to deposit it. You wouldn't have to waste that stamp. So we did launch that. Next year when we do the census, I'm going to try to have it noted on the census itself so we can get, people to respond better. I think, we're definitely moving in the path of technology here. Everything's done online. So if we can move things online and get people to respond electronically, I think it's a huge lift for a lot of people. So we're trying to do that with everything that we do in our office, and the census was one big component that we did this year, and we'll continue to enhance it as the years progress.
So I know Carrie has a question, but just one more follow-up on the volunteer. So I know like I and Martin and other people that work at the elections, our names are on record every time there's an election, we get contacted, here's what your role's gonna be. For the office work around elections, but you were just talking about all the labels and so forth, is that a separate thing that you sign up for, that you have a list of people that you then call each election cycle? How do you sign up to volunteer for that?
So generally speaking, a few months before an election, we have a form that we have on our website. It's a fillable PDF. And basically it asks, are you interested in serving at the polls? Are you interested in doing work leading up to the election? That sort of thing. A few check boxes here and there with your name and contact information. Some people will come in, fill it, a hard copy and drop it off. As always, we timestamp them. And it's a first come, first serve. For example, in the November elections, we had to turn down a lot of people because we had a huge influx of people that wanted to volunteer, which is always a great thing. It's a good problem to have.
Right.
But I also did feel a little bit bad turning people away because I do want people to participate in our democratic process. It's a great opportunity to learn about how elections work and all the steps leading up to election. So I wish we could have more openings, but unfortunately we didn't have that this past November. So again, going back to your question, we'd have that form updated probably by the fall this year, late fall this year, when nomination papers become available for the 2026 annual town election. And we'd have people fill those out. And based on the response rate, we would coordinate, you know, we need this many poll workers, we need these many people in the office, that sort of thing. Regarding,
So the group is a new group each time.
so we
People
have,
volunteer, like you don't just write to the folks that have already volunteered, you're writing to the people who've recently signed up since the sign up started for that election or that year.
correct. There's some people that have been very active in town. So I rely on them because they know the process, they know how things work.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie and say that we devise a new list every election. There have been several individuals that have, you know, done this year after year, election after election. So they already know everything.
Yeah.
So while I love bringing new people on board, I've relied heavily on the people that have done this time and time again.
Okay.
I think there have been a few people that, you know, have never volunteered at the polls, even some students. And so I tried to incorporate that into the day of, like at the polls, so that they can actually get a hands-on experience and learn about how, you know, it's all done. And some of them did a half a shift because they had school in the morning and that sort of thing. But I've heard from a few that they enjoyed it and they'd like to come back and do this again. So it's always awesome to hear that. You know, it just feels good to know that, you know, it's a long day, but these people are doing the same thing time and time again, but it's interesting for them and they enjoy it. So it's refreshing to hear that.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that that's one area where, I mean, normally it's like, oh, we can never get enough volunteers, and there are vacancies on boards and commissions and things around town, but to have to turn people.
That was in
away-
November. That was
Yeah.
November. In
Yeah.
March, we actually had a few vacancies.
Yeah.
A lot of people were on
okay.
vacation,
Yeah.
so they were away for the town election.
All right.
So actually, kudos to a lot of folks. Mr. Kessel, you helped out in that capacity over at your polling location. You were. So like, I mean, people had stepped into different roles that they were than they were used to, and they were able to help out in different precincts at that one given polling location, which was very instrumental in getting us through this town election, because a lot of wardens were out of town. So, yeah.
Cool. Carrie, you have a question?
Yeah, one's curious, two questions, curiosity, and then the other, maybe an opinion. So you said about 11,000 mail-in ballots are sent out. How many registered voters are in Natick?
There are just over 26,000 registered voters and 36,000 residents. Yeah.
So about 40%. The other was, what are your feelings about ranked choice voting?
Ranked choice voting?
Ooh.
Ooh. I actually, it's a really good question. And
remember what Diane said.
Oh, did she have an opinion?
She did.
I actually don't even know Diane's opinion on this. I can begin to guess.
Yeah, well, let's just go with your.
But I think it's an awesome idea, personally. I just don't know how we'd implement it. I mean, there'd have to be a lot of research leading up to that. I know that Boston City Council just voted on that, favorably on that. So
Cambridge has been doing it for years.
Cambridge has been doing it for years. I wasn't aware of that. I think it's a great idea because it also allows people to not just cast their vote for one person, but, you know, highlight those that they think, you know, deserve, you know, consideration, you know, so it gives people more of a voice, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that's what voting is all about. So if town meeting or the state legislator does you know, recommend this, I would be I'd be very excited to, you know, launch here in Natick, and get that moving.
How would that work? Does that have to be a statewide decision, or can individual towns do it? Or,
So as far as the town election, it could be a town decision.
oh, okay, but just the
State
town
election,
position,
yeah.
if the state.
If it was a
position.
state election, the state would
Okay.
have to do it.
Yeah.
State of Maine does it, I
Yeah.
think even for presidential elections, I may be wrong in that. That state of Maine's been doing it for years.
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't done a lot of research about it, but
Yeah.
I think it's actually definitely a great idea. It gives people more of a voice. That's how I see it. And it's something that would probably enhance our elections.
Wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can give an example. A couple of years ago, there was a school committee candidate that was kind of on the fringe that a lot of people didn't like. And there were two candidates running against that person. And there was a concern that the votes between those two candidates would be split, and the one that people didn't like would get in. So there was an email going around, don't vote for this person if you want to get this, make sure this person would vote for that person. So one of the candidates that was one of the Main Street candidates was kind of pushed out of the process by just a fear of the third person getting in. And that would not, in ranked choice voting, that doesn't happen.
Mhm.
That is true, yeah.
Right, yeah, interesting.
I have a question.
Sure.
Whenever there's an election of any sort, but especially town, you know, the results come out and it says something like 30% of people participated overall. And some people are like 30% is awesome, or why only 30%? Why not 100%? I'm curious what you think, having worked on a state level and a local level. What are some of the barriers to why participation rates aren't higher?
That's a really good question. I do think that people you know, really love to vote in presidential elections. So I think that's a huge part of it that we probably could not change people's behavior in that regard. Having an override question on the ballot though this year did get a lot more people to the polls. I mean, 30% for a town election
Yeah,
is
I heard
pretty
that's
pretty
really
high.
Yeah.
So I think having that kind of you know, ballot question definitely did contribute. But people usually, you know, like we fielded a lot of calls, you know, this town election, and in November, leading up to November. Last time I voted, it was 4 years ago. Has my polling location changed? So I mean, people generally have that attitude that they just, you know, vote every 4 years. And while it's important to vote every 4 years, it's also important to vote at every election. Your voice does count. And I encourage people that are, you know, 18 or 18 and older, definitely register to vote and to get out there and vote. Your voice has an impact, and it's important. Some people say it's, you know, my vote's not going to count. There's, you know, millions of other people out there, but one vote could be the difference, you know, on something passing versus something not passing.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that everyone register to vote and always get out to the polls and cast your vote.
And look what happened in California, in the last presidential election.
Yeah.
Figures, California's it's a blue state, it's gonna go boom, so many people can come out and vote.
Right.
And that threw off the whole population.
Well, it also mentioned that a lot of the things that affect your daily life are actually controlled by who's on the select board, or who's
Yes.
on the school committee. It's the local elections
Yeah.
that matter.
So what I'm hearing is maybe on the local level, what we need every time is a spicy question, maybe something about, I'm joking. Maybe about potholes or dam or something, so people get in there.
That's one way to do it.
Right.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to bring up town meeting, which is near and dear to many of our hearts, so to speak. So this is the landmark town meeting. We had two new people up on the front table. We had you and we had Jeff as moderator. All new ideas and new faces. So first question is, so what was your impression of living through this process for the first time? And then the second question is there any thoughts of making it more efficient or better or smoother or whatever? And I know a lot of that's up to Jeff, but just from your point of view, what would you think about that?
So this was the first town meeting where I actually did the work.
Right.
I've attended others.
Yeah, you've
yes.
watched it before.
But yeah. But this was actually very informative for me. I couldn't doze off at all because I had to make sure I got all those votes, you know.
You would have on camera if you're dozing.
That's true. Yeah. So like I had to be very vigilant, very alert, because I want to make sure that, you know, I get everything with accuracy. And so I made you know, little charts for me so that I could keep track of everything. And I'm putting that together as not as we speak, but you know, in the office at this moment. And so I think it was actually a very town meeting this time around went very well. I thought it was going to be a little more contentious, but thankfully it was very smooth, and people were respectful of one another's opinions. And you know, it was a smooth flow with the articles and the hearing of these articles. I thought we were going to finish in 3 days, but that didn't happen. But we still did very well. And I enjoyed hearing people's you know, opinions and feedback regarding the articles. And I did enjoy, you know, the democratic process unfold in the auditorium over there. With regards to making it better or changing anything, I would definitely defer to Jeff. I think one of the good things that Jeff is thinking about is the hybrid option of town meeting. I did have someone reach out to me with a question asking me if they should, step down from town meeting because they have 2 kids and it's hard to leave home at night to attend a town meeting. Hybrid option would fix that and allow participation.
Is that another thing that requires state authorization though?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but I mean, we could definitely, it's up to Jeff and how he deems this fit. But that's one of the things I like and the ideas that I think would help get more people involved. And I think it's important to get more people involved because just like your vote counts, participation in your local government does count. Local government is the most involved type of government there is that you interact with. There's the sanitation aspect, the education aspect, the human services aspect, vote and voting aspect, and so you really interact with your local government more than you would with the state and the feds. So I think it's very important, if not the most important, to deal with your local government and be participating in that effort.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Just to kind of follow up with what Martin was talking about, making town meeting run a little more efficient. I know Paul Joseph's has been trying to do something, look at the town charter and evaluate that and see if there's a more expeditious way to run town government here. Any thoughts on that? I think so. Many years it's been since the charter was updated.
So let me go back to my work history.
Yeah.
I actually worked in the city of Melrose after I joined after I worked for the Secretary of State's Office of Public Records. And in the city of Melrose, it's a small city. And it's has a city form of government, a mayor and an 11-person city council with 7 wards. Seeing the difference between a city form of government and a town form of government, I actually appreciate a town form of government more. Why? You have a lot more people participating in that. In a city form of government, you have, the ward councilors and the at-large councilors making all the decisions in that city. Whereas in a town meeting, town form of government, you have more people participating. So more voices, more opinions, more people heard. And I think that's very important to have those voices be heard in every decision that we make.
Framingham second guessing.
Yeah. And Framingham was it was a town before, up until 2017, 2018. And now they have city form of government. I do appreciate town meeting. I know that sometimes those town meeting nights stretch out a little long, but again, it's a really good way to participate in your local government. And it's
especially that final night when they were debating the punctuation. That was the one I decided to come just the last night. A period or a comma.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Yeah.
But aside from that, particular instance, it's really nice to be involved and have a say and be able to express your thoughts and concerns. And I think in the town form of government, there's more of that, which is awesome. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the override question that was on this last ballot or last election. Obviously, there were a lot of very, strong and loud voices on both sides of the issue, and there were various groups of citizens that kind of organized around it. There were some voices in town that also seemed to be claiming that some of the citizens weren't. Well, I'm stumbling over my words here, that they weren't organized properly, or that the money that was, for the no voice or the yes voice wasn't somehow, disclosed properly. Are there rules if a citizen group wants to argue, organize around an issue that's gonna be on a ballot, that have to make some of either where the funds are coming from or who's involved, public, and also are there rules around kind of how people in town government can or can't express opinions about it? I know that, a lot of folks in the town or in the school committee and so forth certainly were information sources for what are the budget issues, but also had constraints on, to the extent that they could express an opinion about it,
So yes, definitely as town clerk, it's my job and duty to be fair and impartial. So things like an override question, and even candidates on the ballot, I cannot express, favoritism towards one or the other. And I try to uphold that in my duties every day. As town officials, our town administration had made this pretty clear that we cannot express our opinions on the override question. We had to remain fair and impartial. So that was that part of that. Regarding the disclosure of funds and registering the yes vote, yes for Natick and no for Natick, that sort of thing. There are state laws that govern that. These laws are enforced and overseen by the Office of Campaign and Political Finance. So for every candidate.
That's a state office?
That is, yes,
Okay.
yes. For every candidate that runs for office, there's a few things that need to be done. One is they need to file a form that says if they have a political committee or backing of a committee. Even if you don't have if you're running solo and you don't have a treasurer or committee behind you backing you up, you still need to fill this form. But in that form has just a checkbox that says, I'm running on my own, I don't have a committee. You sign it, check that box off, and you send it back to us. With regards to the monetary disclosures, there is a requirement for political donations to be disclosed. And that is a form that needs to be filled out 8 days prior to the election. And then again, 30 days after the election cycle. And those need to be filled out by, the candidates, again, 8 days and 30 days. And those are public documents. So one of the things that my office has done is put those all online for people, for public inspection. During the time that they were being submitted, we did have a lot of public records requests, not public records requests, people coming into the office to inspect these records. And so definitely allowed that. With regards to the political action committees, like the yes for Natick's future or the no on the override, those again are supposed to be registered with the Office of Campaign and Political Finance. They would need to fill out a form, a political action committee, and note who's on that committee, and what the name of the committee, that sort of thing. And so we did have compliance with that to some degree. There was unfortunately a component that I had to refer to the Office of Campaign Political Finance. At this point, it sits in the realm. I cannot disclose anything about that. But we try to ensure compliance. There have been emails after emails, calls after calls, meetings held to try to ensure compliance with that. And when efforts are not made, we had to take the next step.
Is there an easy to understand rule that maybe just like let's take the no, and I don't mean to cast anybody on the bus and you can't talk about specifics per se, but if I didn't want the override to pass, or let's just take some other question, fictional question, I don't want it to pass. And I create a sign and I put it on my lawn saying I'm against this. That's fine, right?
Absolutely.
And my neighbor likes my sign, and so he wants a copy of the sign. And so then it's like, where is it that you start to get into, well, wait a minute, your activity is now kind of so organized, you need to register or something.
That's an awesome question.
Yeah.
And the state defines that very clearly.
It does.
Yes.
Okay.
So any instance where $250 or more is spent, that needs to be reported and made and disclosed.
Spent by
an individual or a group.
Yeah.
So that is kind of, these are the parameters of the law.
Yeah.
And so based on that knowledge, and after I consulted the Office of Campaign Political Finance, I was able to, better understand this. Again, I'm new to this job. I haven't done this, this particular role before. So there's a lot of learning for me, and I'm still learning to this day. I try to work with everyone to, educate people. I don't want to penalize anyone. I want to educate people. I want people to comply. Because again, this all helps foster transparency in the local government, which is huge.
Yeah.
People need to understand what's going on and where these dollars are being spent and being raised.
Yeah.
And I think this is, a crucial part of that.
Yeah, I think it's important for all voices on issues to be able to be heard and not to have them start feeling like they're being shut down by these weird arcane rules. So the more, to the extent the rules can be made visible,
Absolutely.
it certainly helps. Yeah.
And
Just to follow up, has it been a custom of the town clerk to be involved with the campaign and finance committee at the state level and to help people here who are interested in those records to find that information, even though it's a state filing?
well,
Or is it
yes.
something that you've initiated,
No, this is something required by Mass General Law in my job description.
but that you have to make that information available locally?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
okay.
requires that I make it available locally.
Okay.
We put it online just to
Yeah.
help people access it from home at the comfort of their computer.
Mhm.
And other communities have done so. There's actually, if you go to the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, you can click on the state map of Massachusetts and click on any town, and it will link you to their municipality's specific campaign finance forms. So like,
Cool.
just if I may.
Yeah.
Again, my interaction with the state was one that I had to do under state law.
Got it.
So it was not something that was optional for me.
Yeah.
I tried to wait till the very last minute. I gave ample opportunity, and that's when I had to make, inform the state that I wasn't seeing compliance.
Got it.
Good. Yeah. Mark.
I wanna, sort of clarify a little bit, even though it's required by the state, we actually file it with the town clerk, and I was, for some reason, I was designated as president of the CPA ballot committee, even though I wasn't technically a chair of that group, I was one of the organizers. And, we checked very carefully with Diane about what we were supposed to do. Diane Packer was a clerk then, and, the state.
This is back
guidelines-
when we were
Well,
trying, we
when
had
we
the
tried to
question
pass
on
the
the,
CPA, yeah. on
pass
the
the
state-
CPA,
on the
gotcha.
state ballot.
right.
And, the state guidelines were pretty clear, but we always had little like questions like, what time of day do we file this? Do we file it in? And we had very little, and she answered the questions. And, when I filed it, I came down in person, gave it to her in person. She made sure she stamped it, put it in the right folder, and, it's there for the public. And, we did everything we could to make sure we followed it correctly, because, forget to cross a T or dot an I. I also know that last time the CPA was on the ballot, there was an anti-group who was really going through the pro group pretty carefully. So we wanted to make sure they wouldn't find anything bad about us. So we were very careful. But I think it is an advantage of being in a town rather than trying to deal with the state is that you've got people like yourself who you can actually talk to and sit down and make sure you're doing it right and get clarification.
Absolutely.
Process.
Yeah. There were a couple of hands that have gone up online that then lowered. I just want to circle back. Sarah and Brindley, you both had hands up and lowered them. Was there anything that you wanted to comment on? Sarah first, yeah.
I had just when the conversation was leaning going around to hybrid town meeting, just want to echo this idea of people who might have young kids or caring for an older parent or whatever, that it's hard for them to leave the house. During the pandemic, when we were completely remote, there was some of the highest town meeting participation I've ever seen in like 20 years on town meeting. So I wholeheartedly support having a hybrid option available. I think it will make town meeting more accessible to a broader variety of people, again, on this idea of trying to get more voices into the mix and do the best, come up with the best ideas we can. And the other thing I wanted to ask is completely off that topic. In terms of what's down in the vault, I'm volunteer and I love old documents, but I have this idea that there might be an overwhelming amount of information down there that, for me to just kind of go in the vault and wander around. Is there like an index or something that could help pinpoint what might be down there so that you can kind of hone in on what you're actually looking for without just kind of plowing through it?
Sure. So it's actually not as big as you envision it to be. But it does have like all the annual reports of the town. And it does have like the all vital records. So that's a huge chunk of it right there. As you may remember, the town of Natick had a birthing hospital, Leonard Morse. So every birth record or every birth that occurred in that hospital is on file in the town of Natick.
All our
So we
kids were
have-
born there.
Sorry.
Sarah, what?
I was saying all our kids were born
Oh,
there.
Yeah.
I thought you had a question, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, so that's a huge part of it. Again, the birth, marriage, and death records all live in there. And the annual reports, and then other things like zoning decisions from the zoning board of appeals, planning board decisions, historic permits, if you will, for like auctioneers, flammables, gas and storage, that sort of thing. A lot of this stuff that has to be permanent records or permanent archived are all live in the vault. I'm happy to show you at some point if you'd like. But it's mostly the things that we get a lot of interest in are typically the annual reports. People want to research what happened in one town meeting in whatever year it may be. So people will often come and look at those annual reports. As zoning bylaws at the time, we do have several versions of the zoning bylaw from 1970s on, and town bylaws, that sort of thing. So that's what lives in the vault.
Cool. And then Brinley, anything or?
Thank you.
Sure. One of them harkens way back to talking about voting. I just wanted to, since we're recording and people can watch this, I just want to remind people that in Massachusetts, you can register to vote when you get your driver's license. You can check a box and you're registered, and I can confirm factually that it works because we did that with our son. And when he turned 18, he actually that was it. We didn't have to do anything else. He was registered and could vote right away. So I thought that's a cool thing to do. And then I wanted to let people know that I did put in the links in the chat, I did put the campaign finance organization website. They are fantastic to work with. I have helped in several campaigns now, and they've always been very quick to answer any questions and help me with whatever I need. And so I put that link in there. Catherine got back to me with the link from Jay about the vacancies on town, and I put that in there. There are a few things still missing. Some of the time commitments, et cetera, haven't been fully updated, but the link is there now. And I do believe Jay is doing a blast. I think it just came out with that information. And then also, if you're looking for annual reports, the library, I've gone and looked up voting and how people voted and stuff in town meeting, and the annual reports are also at the library. So if there's a time when you can't find them in the vault because you can't get there for that time, you can also go to the library for those.
Also, if I may add, there are these volumes are actually online too. I forget the name of the organization, but it's a national organization. I forget. But it's basically they've archived, they've scanned and archived all these annual reports going back to the 1800s online. So they are PDF searchable on there. And that sort of thing. It's a valuable resource for those that want to work from behind a desktop. And the state library also receives a copy of every annual report if so they're there.
Wow, that's cool. So Martin and then Rick also.
Yeah, I wanted to set out a warning against something Brinley just said, which is, speaking as warden in precinct 2, every election we get people who say they have registered to vote, who aren't on the list. And inevitably it comes down to the fact that they registered through the registry of motor vehicles. And that's not to say that the registry doesn't submit most of the filings correctly, but apparently there are many that it doesn't return to the city or town correctly. So what I would urge people to, if you do register to vote through the registry, is to either call the town clerk in Natick like a week or two later, or right before the election or whatever, or else I believe there may be a state website where you can check if you're registered. Is that?
Yes. So that's very good, very good.
Brindley, why don't you find the link to that state website, because you can do it way faster than.
I can tell you.
Oh, great, okay, yeah.
It's sec.state.ma.us.
Whoa,
Right.
that one memorized. All
Yeah.
right.
It's a valuable resource. You can check your voter registration status on there. You can change your party, re-register with whatever party you want to register under. So it's a valuable resource. And again, that's online. Feel free to call us at any time, and we'll be able to validate that for you if you want.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
so register with the registry, but then double check it before you come
Yeah.
in to vote, please.
Good.
Secretary.state.ma.
sec.state.
Yeah.
SEC.
So,
Not any.
Rick and then Cindy and then we're starting to come up on 10:30.
We are,
Rick.
Well, I have a question, but I just want to share. I'm still chuckling over the vision of Sarah in a hazmat suit in Andrew's archives, digging out toxic waste from your archives. Watch out,
Look,
Andrew. Watch out.
I will say, Rick, before the age of digital records, Andrew, I worked in hazardous waste site assessment and cleanup my whole career, which is why Rick is saying this. And back in the day, one of the things we would do was research the history of a site. And it'd be like pulling teeth to get stuff out of town halls. Some were really organized, some were totally clueless. When my first kid was born, I'd bring him with me sometimes, and everybody would think he was so cute. They do extra work to get the records. But I will say, just over the years, town clerk's offices in general have done a really fabulous job in the state as well of digitizing things, and it has made research so much easier. So kudos to you guys, kudos to the state. I had to research so much stuff, and it made it much, much easier. So
Thank you.
So you have nothing to worry about, Andrew. You're
Good to know.
Okay, so my question is back to what Sarah mentioned, prompted this about hybrid meetings, and I wondered, one of the things that she mentioned was that attendance was way up during the pandemic. I wasn't a town meeting member then when it was hybrid. I started right after. I imagine though that a lot of people had a lot of time. They were working at home. Life was very different then. Is there any kind of I'm sure there'll be an effort to find out how towns that have gone hybrid do with increasing regular attendance. And one of the things that I think I wouldn't want to overestimate is what happens when people are on a hybrid meeting at home at night, and they have all sorts of interruptions and attention spans, and you have a quorum if they're open on it, but it seems like a very complicated issue to me to figure out how it's really going to work. Not that it's not worth trying, but I just not sure that it's, in my own head, not sure that it's the answer to better attendance. It might seem like more attendance, but I'm not sure if it's better attendance.
Fair point.
maybe.
Go ahead.
I think it's definitely a very valid point. That goes back to when I say there's a lot of things to be worked out, because we also have to make sure that people can vote from home. We have clickers. If you go to the auditorium as a town meeting member, you get a clicker, and that's how you vote. How are you going to do that from home? So there's a lot of kinks to be worked out, a lot of things to be worked out. But I'm happy to work with Jeff on that and our partner Option Technologies. I actually this brings me back to a point. I have a conference coming up in June, which I'll be attending, and that's in Plymouth, Mass. And the clerk in Plymouth, Mass, actually Plymouth runs a hybrid town meeting. And I've gotten to know her, so I actually want to talk to her about that and see how things go over there and learn a little bit about that process.
During COVID, we had that other piece of software where you could vote with. Had a PC going, I vote on it, and I was watching on a laptop, participating that way. So I don't remember what that software was, which you could vote for town meeting. I remember.
Yeah,
I don't know what it was called, but yeah, it
was a little
it
quirky,
raises an interesting question, because I believe technically it's a lot harder to do a hybrid than it is to do with all Zoom, because you've got two voting systems going at once, and you got to merge the results. So,
Okay,
And another big,
yeah, that's,
yeah, I
Valid
don't know,
point.
yeah, I don't know, I'm sure it's surmountable, but
another big
it's not as simple as it's we'd like.
No,
to
it's
have.
not.
okay.
Another issue to think about is, we have 4 nights at town meeting. One night you can make it to the auditorium, the other nights you have to be home.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Right.
So there's a lot of questions to be asked and a lot of ways to figure this out.
Yeah, right.
But I think, the direction that, in technology and how things are heading, I think this would be, just personally, I think this is, something that could help, bring more
Yeah.
people into the picture.
Yeah, what's encouraging is
and-
to hear that you're exploring it.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yes.
necessarily mean, oh, we're definitely
No,
gonna do it.
it's not up to me.
regardless of the- Yeah,
It's not up to me, but I'm happy to
Yeah.
look into this,
right.
and I'm happy to do research and
Yeah.
find out what,
Yeah,
what
and
we
you
can
can
do to
talk to your
enhance the process
peers
and that sort of
and,
thing.
you know,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
I think
Exactly.
this group would be a good sounding board to come back to when you've done some research on this. And I mean, I plan, Jeff has asked me about it already. I just bumped into him in the street right after town meeting. And I definitely want to talk to him more because he's also going to be part of this, I'm sure. But I was going to talk to Jay even sometime this week about it, about other, I mean, if the goal, I'm for exploring it because I think there are ways to do it maybe that can really help out for the reasons that Sarah mentioned, going back to, people with unable to come for one reason or another, or sick or something else who should stay home. Maybe there needs to be some permission. I mean, not to throw the town clerk another huge mess of, applications or anything like that, Andrew, but, maybe there should be some reason to have it, although I don't know if you could, they would obviously be self-reported. But I'm not sure that I see it as the only way to figure out how to get more participation in town affairs, which I think are more and more important now than ever, to anticipate, the future where things are going to become infinitely more stressful and complicated, in my opinion, due to many issues. And, rather than seeing the town go in the direction of division and so forth, which comes from lack of knowing each other and communication, I just think there are things to explore there that are important, more so than just getting a few more people on town meeting. Anyway, enough from me on that.
Let's go to Cindy's question or comment and then try to wrap things up.
So, I don't know if it's just me, but I think I'm aware as a comment that there's a feeling in the air that people, yes, the national elections are important, but local elections affect your everyday daily life. And in the last 5 or 6 years, I would say I've heard that when I really hadn't heard it before. I always knew it, but I think maybe it's out in the air. So I think that bodes well for the town of Natick and any other town. Is there an effort to go to the high school to get kids when they turn 18 to register? Is there an outreach from the town to do that with the school?
We haven't done that because, it's a good idea.
Maybe the school
but
already does it. I don't know.
The thing is, as Brinley mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
as soon as you turn 16, you're eligible to get your learner's permit
Okay.
from the RMV.
Yeah.
And one of the things you can do is check register me to vote when I turn 18.
Yeah.
And actually, once you do that, it comes to us and it sits in a queue as a pre-registrant. And what happens is on the 18th birthday, like every day we go on and then, this person could be turning 18 today. We'll go ahead and approve. And then they'll get a letter in the mail saying, you're registered to vote. This is your party. This is your registration address. So, I mean, I think the RMV gets to them a lot earlier than we would in the high school level. Because everyone at 16 wants to get on the road. So I think that's a good outreach and a good mechanism that works in terms of the registry of motor vehicles and voter registration. I do try to work with the I have tried to work with Michelle from the high school to engage students, especially like, upperclassmen, such as when we needed pages for town meeting. We also invited those people to attend an informational session about town government and town meeting. Unfortunately, we didn't see much participation, but it's something that Jeff has made a clear desire to have happen. So we're trying to explore that as we progress, and we'll see what we can do to get more civic participation from those that are at the voting age. So
on that, the 101 sessions would be great too, if Pegasus could ever have find out a way to show those, or to have those as part of civics in school. But do we have data on sort of demographic data on local on our Natick elections in terms of ages and stuff like that of voters?
I'm sure I could pull that up somehow. I know I have definitely a database of, I can go through the database and see who voted at the last election, because everyone gets scanned in as they register, as they cast a ballot. I'm sorry. So I'm sure it's somewhere there. I'd have to figure out how to pull that up in the system.
Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one who might have an interest, but if it's never come up before, then maybe there's not a great interest anyway. Something to think about.
Rick, I can say, as someone who's spent a lot of time evaluating the registered data voter in Natick, that you can easily get age demographics.
Okay.
From that.
All right. I'll
It's there, just have to
really. Oh, it's easy to use.
Yeah, I mean, if you're good at Excel and figuring out how to set that up, it's not that hard to do.
Ooh, okay. I'll take your word.
That's true.
I can also say that I know that both the Natick Dems and the Natick Republicans town committees have done in the past outreach to try to get young people registered to vote and out to vote. And then there are several moms groups that in the past several years have worked to do that, to get kids registered to vote as well. It's a little hard to do. As we've discovered, it's really hard to reach them. So from what Andrew says, I think is right. It's hitting them when they're 16 and getting it to be automatic.
It's Insta.
Cindy.
So, I vote at the senior center, the community center, whatever we're calling it. And, I can never remember my precinct. And my suggestion relates to making the line more efficient to get through the doors and into the gymnasium, knowing when I get to the gym where I'm gonna go. And that is to put a map up showing the precincts. Because if you're in the middle of a precinct, it's very easy for you to see what number you're on. And otherwise you have to give your street address, your name, and this person's with the computer and she's looking it up. And I'm like, no, just show me the map so I can just remember which number I'm. And I think that would be just helpful. Also kind of pretty, because the maps that you have are.
Yes, actually, that was one of the things that I did in the office. I contacted our GIS person and got some maps of precincts and their boundaries. And actually, it's been very helpful. But I like the suggestion. I will try to get those maps that all 4 districts are polling locations next time we have an election. Going back to November, the presidential election, we did have influx of volunteers that could assist. So we did have what you would call locators, or people that would, with an iPad, that would say, what's your address, what's your name,
Right.
And your precinct 2, your precinct 3, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they would direct them to the appropriate line. This time, we wanted to implement that, but we just didn't have the manpower.
Yeah.
So we couldn't do just that.
So that's what I was saying, that created a block.
Yeah.
For people like me who just needed to look at the map and just remember the number.
Right. Well,
And then people on a boundary might have to go to the person and say, well, I'm right on this street, I know that, and there's a boundary between.
I'll see if I can get those maps going.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us. I know we talked before. It's like, wow, was there really an hour and a half of stuff to talk about? It was always an hour. Yes. But yeah, it's been great to get to know you a little bit better.
Voiced in your knowledge.
I do want to just remind people for the benefit of the group, next Monday, we will not be having a session because it's Memorial Day.
Yes.
And Paulie, who was on earlier, of course, had to leave because he's already very busy getting the town ready, the cemetery is ready. So please try to make some time in your day for Memorial Day observances. And then we'll be moving into June, and we're gonna start by going overseas to Estonia and Finland.
Wow.
Cindy is gonna give us a slideshow of a trip she took with your sister?
Yes,
Sister.
yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got a variety of groups, Natick Community Organic Farm, the new executive director for the cultural district, the Heather Rockwood will be here. We do have an open date, and we'll go from there. So enjoy the day and the week, everyone.